Welcome to a deep dive all about an actress that you might recognize,
Yeah.
Vanessa Kirby. But I think her career is even more interesting than you realize. Our main source today is like this long biography. And trust me, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, what I find so interesting about her is just the depth and intentionality behind her choices. It's not just random successful roles. It feels like there's an arc to her career that's worth examining.
For sure. So, okay, let's start with her background. Born in Wimbledon, England, not exactly your like typical Hollywood
Right.
origin story, right?
Right.
Her dad is like this super accomplished surgeon, and her mom was a writer for Country Living magazine. So that's, kind of interesting mix of influences.
Yeah, talk about range.
And then you have the siblings, right? A brother who's a teacher, and then a sister who is a theatrical agent. I mean, it almost feels like, was she destined for this or
Yeah,
something?
yeah. Makes you wonder about those early influences, right? But, she actually faced a pretty big rejection early on. She got turned down by LMDA, one of the top drama schools in the UK. That could have been a major setback, but in a way, it seems like it might have kind of fueled her fire.
It's true. And then she goes and spends a year working in an AIDS hospice in South Africa.
Yeah,
Like, that feels like a pivotal moment, doesn't it?
yeah, it does.
I mean, just imagining the kind of depth of understanding about, like, the human experience that must have given her.
Hard to imagine it not having a profound impact on her. I think it shows a real sense of empathy and a desire to engage with the world on this deeper level. And I mean, you could argue that that's what makes her such a good actress, right?
Totally. So she goes on to Exeter, studies English Lit, but the pull of the stage was just too strong. And she ends up debuting at the Octagon Theatre, Bolton. And get this, 3 plays right out of the gate.
Yeah, and she wins the BZI Rising Star Award almost immediately for All My Sons. I think this is a huge sign. It tells me that not only does she have raw talent, but that she's also got the work ethic and that presence that just commands attention.
Okay, so then we have The Crown. This is where I think most people became aware of her.
Right?
I mean, Princess Margaret, that's a heck of a role.
Oh, for sure. And it was the perfect role for her at that time. I mean, Princess Margaret is such a complex character, so much contradiction. It gave her the chance to show her range
Yeah.
and the global recognition, a BAFTA award. I mean, that's pretty amazing. But I think what she did next is even more interesting.
She goes from period drama to action hero in, like,
Yeah.
the blink of an eye. Mission Impossible and Fast and Furious, those are not small films.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important. She could have easily just done period pieces after The Crown and probably been very successful. But she chose to branch out. I think she saw the danger of being pigeonholed as that Crown actress.
Yeah.
It shows a real understanding of how to build your own career. She wasn't just letting it happen, she was shaping it.
It's like she's saying, hey, I can do it all. And then she does Pieces of a Woman. Now, this is a completely different kind of film. So intense. It's about this woman dealing with, like, the unimaginable losing a child during childbirth. Heavy stuff.
Incredibly heavy. But it's amazing to see her pushing her boundaries like that. It wasn't about staying glamorous. It was about exploring grief in a very raw and human way. And she did it with such honesty that she won Best Actress at the Venice Film Festival and then, an Oscar nomination.
Wow. Awards aside, though, what do you think went into a performance like that? Did she, like, use method acting? Was there a ton of research involved that must have taken a real emotional toll?
I've read stories about how she spent a lot of time with mothers who'd experienced similar losses, really immersing herself in their stories. It shows a deep respect for the subject matter. It wasn't just like an acting exercise for her.
For sure. And then from that, she goes and plays Empress Josephine in Napoleon opposite Joaquin Phoenix. I mean,
Yeah.
that's incredible. And we're not talking about a fluff piece here.
No, not at all. She seems drawn to these roles where she can explore really powerful women who are complex and multidimensional. I think it makes you wonder if maybe she's deliberately trying to reclaim these figures from history, to give them the nuance that they deserve.
That's such a good point. It adds a whole new layer to how we view her career.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears for a second and talk about what she's doing when she's not acting. She started a production company with her sister Aluna Entertainment, and they have a deal with Netflix. It feels like such a natural next step for her,
It really does. And it seems like she's genuinely interested in giving a voice to stories about women, not just using it as a vehicle for herself. And partnering with Netflix, that's a big statement about how ambitious she is. It makes me think back to that early work she did in South Africa, that sense of purpose.
It's like she's saying, okay, I've climbed this ladder, now I'm going to reach down and pull others up with me. And speaking of climbing ladders, she's about to climb a big one. Get ready for superhero Vanessa.
Superhero Vanessa.
Sue Storm in the new Fantastic Four. I mean, that's huge GE. A completely different genre.
Absolutely. And it just shows how willing she is to keep challenging herself. She's not playing it safe, that's for sure.
Okay, but with all these massive films, does it make you wonder if she'll, still be drawn to those smaller, more character-driven projects?
It's a good question, but I think if you look closely at what she's done so far, she's actually been very selective. It doesn't feel like she's chasing fame or big box office numbers. Each role feels very deliberate, like it's part of some bigger puzzle.
And it seems to be working. She's also starring in and producing The Night Always Comes, a Netflix adaptation of a novel. She's got her eye on projects that align with her values.
Yeah, she's playing the long game. And that's something I really admire about her. It's not just about the next role. It's about building a career that's both successful and, meaningful.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from her unusual upbringing to her very deliberate career choices to her commitment to using her platform for good. I think we're really starting to get a sense of who Vanessa Kirby is, but there's still so much more to explore.
Definitely. In the next part, we're going to really dig into some of her most memorable performances, her acting style, and what makes her such a captivating presence on screen. I think it'll be really interesting.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Vanessa Kirby. I'm excited to really zero in on some of her most memorable performances. I mean, I feel like we could spend hours just dissecting each one.
We could try. There's so much there. From The Crown and Princess Margaret to the raw emotion of Pieces of a Woman, each role just reveals a different side of her talent.
Okay, so Princess Margaret. That role was a huge turning point for her, right? But what was it about that character specifically that resonated so much with everyone? I mean, obviously the awards and all that, but beyond that,
Well, she had to strike this really delicate balance. Margaret was glamorous and vulnerable, strong, but also fragile. She was always battling these expectations of royal life while also trying to figure out what she wanted,
And you see that conflict play out on screen. The way Vanessa carries herself, those tiny changes in her expression. It's like you can see the wheels turning in her head.
Exactly. It's all about that subtext, those feelings that are just under the surface. And I think that's why I connected with people, right? We all feel that tension sometimes between what we should be doing and what we want to do.
I read that she spent months researching Margaret, reading biographies, watching old footage. Is that typical of her?
Yeah.
To really go deep into prep.
She's known for being incredibly meticulous. It's not just about learning lines, it's about understanding the whole person. She even worked with a movement coach to get Margaret's posture and the way she walked. Exactly right. Those little things matter.
It's like she builds the character from the inside out. And it works.
Right.
I mean, you believe her. You feel her frustration, that yearning she has.
Right. And then she goes and does Mission Impossible, total 180, right?
The White Widow.
Yeah.
Total surprise. But she was amazing. That scene with Tom Cruise,
So good.
Chills.
It was smart. I think she knew it was a challenge and an opportunity, a chance to show everyone she wasn't going to be typecast.
And she brought this, elegance to it, Even with all the explosions and running around, I almost feel like she elevated the whole genre. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. She took a character that could have been so flat and gave her depth. There's this vulnerability beneath that tough exterior that just makes her so much more interesting to watch.
And she's not just physically capable. She's sharp too.
Yeah.
The way she says her lines, that wit, there's a real threat there.
It's a reminder that strength doesn't have to be all yelling and muscles, right? It can be quiet and even more powerful for it.
Okay, we have to talk about Pieces of a Woman. This film is a masterclass in how to act with your whole being. Her performance as Martha, dealing with the loss of a child.
Wow. It's the kind of role that asks everything of an actor. And the amazing thing is, she doesn't shy away from any of it. We see the anger, the utter despair. There's no holding back.
And it's not just emotional. The way she moves, how she interacts with the world, it's like this physical manifestation of grief.
She did so much research, talking to women who had experienced the same thing. That's what makes it so real. She went there, to that dark place, to understand.
There's that one scene, she's just staring out the window.
Right.
And you can feel the weight of everything she's carrying. No words. Just pure emotion.
Sometimes words aren't enough. It's those small moments, the way a face changes, that's where you really get it. The depth of what's going on inside.
It shows how much the director trusted her. To let those silences speak for themselves, a lot of actors couldn't handle that.
Totally. It takes a real willingness to be vulnerable. to let the camera see every bit of it. And that's when we, as viewers, really connect. We see ourselves in that pain.
And it's not just about the grief, right? It's about how she picks herself up, how she finds a way to keep going when everything feels impossible.
You're right. There's that tiny spark of hope. Like, even in the darkest moments, there's strength. She's incredible at showing that duality, the fragility, but also that fighting spirit. It's what makes us human.
So from that rawness, she goes on to play Empress Josephine in Napoleon, another powerful woman. Like, I'm seeing a pattern here.
I was thinking the same thing. Strong women who refuse to let the men in their lives define them.
Right. It makes you wonder if she's doing this on purpose, like choosing roles that, challenge those old ideas about women in power.
It would fit with how she's using her production company, too. Like, she's not just an actress. She's trying to change the whole industry.
It's almost like her whole career is this statement, about the kind of impact she wants to have. Okay, so we've talked about some of her biggest roles, but what do you think ties it all together? What's that unique thing about Vanessa Kirby, her style, that makes her so captivating?
I think it's a couple things. First of all, she's intelligent. You see it in her eyes, the way she uses language. There's a real thoughtfulness behind everything she does. It's not just acting, it's understanding.
Like, she's not just playing a part, she becomes that person,
Exactly. And she's also very vulnerable. She's not afraid to let us see her weaknesses, her pain, her insecurities, all of it. That's what makes her feel so real to us.
But then she's also incredibly strong and confident. Like, it's this amazing paradox.
And that's what makes her so interesting. It's that full spectrum of human experience. She doesn't shy away from any of it.
It's more than just a pretty face. There's a force there.
Definitely. And I think you could say a force for good, too. With her acting, her production company, how she advocates for women in the industry, it all adds up to something meaningful.
I'm curious how she manages to stay so private with all this fame. It's not gotta be hard.
It seems like she knows who she is. She's not chasing the spotlight or stirring up drama. She lets her work speak for itself.
And that's powerful in itself. In a world that's so obsessed with appearances, she's focusing on substance.
Right. It's inspiring. It's like she's saying you can achieve great things and still stay true to yourself, to what you believe in.
Okay, we've talked about her past, her present. Now, what about her future? What do you think is next for Vanessa Kirby?
I think she's on her way to becoming one of the biggest names in the whole business, not just an actress, but a producer, maybe a director someday. She's clearly interested in shaping the stories we see, not just being in them. And with her talent and how hard she works, I think she can do anything she sets her mind to.
I love that. It feels like she's just getting started, and I can't wait to see what she does next. Welcome back to our Vanessa Kirby Deep Dive. It's interesting. We've gone from those early days on stage to these, incredible films, and I feel like we're getting a much better picture of her now,
Yeah.
Not just the roles, but who she is.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing, hasn't it? And now I think the question is, what happens next? What's in store for her? Where does she go from here?
Well, there's the whole superhero thing, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
Sue Storm. I mean, that's a massive franchise. Part of me is really curious to see what she does with it, Do you think it's like a totally different direction for her, or does it still fit into what we've seen so far?
I get what you're saying. On the surface, yeah, maybe it looks different, but she always picks roles that, kind of shake things up. She likes to surprise us. So in that sense, maybe it is part of the pattern.
Oh, for sure. And she's still doing those smaller projects too, right? The Night Always Comes,
Yeah.
which she's producing A&D, starring in. I mean, that's impressive. It's like she's balancing these huge films with things that are more personal, more about the acting.
I think you've got it. I think that's the key to how she thinks about her career. It's not just about being famous. It's about, leaving a mark, doing something meaningful. And her production company, Aluna Entertainment, that's a big part of it. She's creating space for other women, telling stories that might not get told otherwise.
Yeah, it's like she's trying to change Hollywood from the inside. I mean, good for her. That's pretty incredible.
It really is. And she's doing it all while staying out of the gossip and all that, In a world where everyone wants to know everything, she's managed to keep a lot of it private.
It's true. Do you think it's a deliberate choice, or is she just kind of, naturally private?
Maybe a little of both. She doesn't seem to care much about the whole fame game. No paparazzi chasing or, oversharing on social media. It's refreshing, honestly. Her focus is on the work.
And I think it works to her advantage. In Hollywood, it's all about image, but she's letting her work speak for itself, which makes her even more interesting in a way.
Right. There's this mystery there. We don't know everything, so we pay attention to what she does, to those performances.
Okay, so big question. What's next? What do you think the future holds for Vanessa Kirby?
My guess, we're seeing the beginning of something really big. She's not just talented, she's smart, she's passionate, and she wants to make a difference. I wouldn't be surprised if she starts directing, writing, really taking control of those stories.
You know what? That makes so much sense. She's not content to just be told what to do. She wants to shape things. And with the way she approaches everything, I bet she'd be amazing at it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't wait to see what she does next. She's proof that talent, hard work, and a clear vision can get you anywhere, and she's just getting started.
That's a fantastic point to end on. Vanessa Kirby, she's a force to be reckoned with. Talented, driven, and a bit of a mystery. If you haven't seen her work, go check it out. You won't be disappointed.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive will inspire you to do some exploring of your own. There's so much out there waiting to be discovered.
Happy watching, everyone.